Happy Friday and welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. That sound you hear in the background, could it possibly be the playoff door closing for the Dallas Cowboys? We have a massive show for you, but we start with a Thursday night football matchup that had every NFL fan, Caroline, absolutely sitting on the edge of their seats. The Cowboys tried repeatedly to make it close. They could not do it. The Lions go in 44-30 in a game that at times didn't even feel like the Lions were being tested. This was just an absolute thumping. The offense of Detroit, I should say, was untouchable. Does this end the playoff hopes for the Dallas Cowboys?
It does. It really does. Mathematically, no. But I viewed this game, I think we all kind of viewed this game as a playoff elimination game for both of these teams. You know, you win and you are still in contention. It's not a lock. The Lions still have an uphill battle. They still have the Rams next week. They are by no means mathematically a lock to make the playoffs. But win and you are still in contention. Lose, and as we're seeing with the Dallas Cowboys, you know, depending on whatever playoff simulator you want to use out there, the Cowboys' chances of making the playoffs are still less than 10%. And I've seen, even if the Cowboys win out, there's still about a 40-50% chance of making the playoffs. And that's taking care of all of their business. So the Cowboys do not control their own fate. The Cowboys are going to have to prey on an Eagles downfall. I'm sure that's nothing new for Cowboys fans to prey on the downfall of the Philadelphia Eagles. That's I think that's a possibility. I think that's very much so in play. We just saw the Eagles blow a 21-0 lead to the Cowboys. We just saw the Eagles get absolutely thumped by the Bears. So maybe that does happen, but I'm not going to put my money on the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles to just go on an absolute epic landslide to end the season. So yes, this is the Dallas Cowboys season. They will not be in the postseason, which is frankly, Fitz, such a shame based on the way that Dak Prescott has been playing this season. We were talking so much early in the season, early into the mid part of the season, about Dak Prescott and his MVP campaign, because Dak Prescott has been playing MVP caliber football, and it's gone wasted on this defense. And look, I was wondering, okay, did this defense figure some things out with the addition of Quinnen Williams? Obviously, we saw them go back-to-back, beating the Eagles and the Chiefs. Think, okay, like, did they maybe figure some things out? And I think last night showed that maybe the wins over the Eagles and the Chiefs said more about the Eagles and the Chiefs than it did than this defense actually getting upgraded. We saw it with what the Lions were able to do on the ground. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, what Jared Goff was able to do through the air. Maybe it's not the sexiest, gaudiest numbers that don't pop off the box score, but my goodness, was Jared Goff good. My goodness, did Jared Goff not just do everything that he needed to do in addition to this ground game and this nasty physical defense that was getting after the Cowboys all night long?
So I think there's one big thing that I missed coming into this game, and it hit me last night watching it. This was the fourth game for the Dallas Cowboys in the last 18 days. Think about that.
Oof.
4 football games in 18 days. So I hear you, and I think you're right that what we saw last night was a Dallas Cowboys defense that wasn't nearly what we thought they were going to be or what they needed to be in this situation. And unfortunately, Dallas played themselves into this situation. Let's not get it twisted. They are where they are with their backs against the wall because they lost a lot of football games that they just shouldn't have lost earlier in the year. They just couldn't get it together defensively. We all know that. But now, with their back against the wall, 4th game in 18 days, I think what we saw was an exhausted team because physicality just wasn't there on either side of the ball, right? Like, Cowboys didn't run the ball. They couldn't stop the run. Jahmyr Gibbs last night tied Barry Sanders for the most touchdowns in the first 3 seasons as a Detroit Lion. Think about that. Jahmyr Gibbs in the same sentence as Barry Sanders. Like, that is absolutely incredible. Most touchdowns by the age of 24 ever. Like, that is just an incredible stat line to think about for Jahmyr Gibbs, and it looked easy. The explosiveness of Gibbs is something I think we've talked about on the show almost every day this week, right? But it really showed up last night, and it also just showed up because there wasn't any gas left in the tank for the Cowboys. I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to look at why they seemed flatter as a team last night. Part of that is Detroit. Part of that is, I think, just the strain of 4 games in 18 days. And that's why, look, they get now the mini-bye. They're going to get ready for it. I think the Cowboys are going to win out. The problem is 10-6-1, amazingly, which would be their final record if they were to win every game left on the schedule. might not get him into the playoffs. To your point, I don't think an implosion of the Eagles is coming. And then you start looking at the wild card picture. They're going to need Green Bay. They're going to need the 49ers. They're going to need teams like that to lose multiple games down the stretch. So the most important part of this is the Cowboys have to take care of their own business. Now, 3 of the 4 teams that they play remaining have absolutely nothing left to play for. The Chargers are the one outlier on that, but that game is in Dallas. I like Dallas for their 4 remaining games. And I like this Dallas team overall. I just wonder if they push themselves too far back against the wall. I still think the playoffs could be there, but now instead of just Dallas controlling any portion of that, they're praying for an implosion.
It could be there, but they just have to make sure that while they take care of their business, Philadelphia doesn't. Because I think the Cowboys' clearest path to making the playoffs is winning the division. And that's not that far off. That's not that crazy to think about. But it just feels a little bit too far-fetched from where we are. Like, I don't think that the Eagles are who they were the last 2 weeks. I don't think the Eagles, who have looked at times like the best, deepest, most competitive team in the NFL, are going to all of a sudden just lose out, which is really kind of what the Cowboys are going to need the Eagles to do in order to secure that division. But I think we need to give credit to the Lions here. Because going into this game, I said I trusted Dan Campbell more, and I picked the Lions to win. I'm just going to go on my victory lap a little bit here. And I said I trusted Dan Campbell more because, thank you very much, thank you. Because I trust Dan Campbell with his back against the wall. And that came to fruition last night. Is this not the identity of this Lions team? Gotta have it, must win game, ground and pound, be the more physical team. Like, that is Dan Campbell. This team has taken on the persona of Dan Campbell. And when you say, hey, Lions, you have to have it, your backs are absolutely up against a wall, and you have to win a game, that's when I feel like the Lions play their best style and best brand of football. Now, this season, they've been incredibly Jekyll and Hyde. They've been hot and cold. They've been up and down. I would anticipate to see that throughout the rest of the season kind of come to fruition. Like, I don't expect the Lions to beat the Rams next week. We'll discuss next week, but I don't expect them to win that game because I just don't think they're better than the Rams, and that's been the Lions all season long. They're hot and cold, they're up, they're down. But this just felt like such a Dan Campbell kind of game. You know, you're at home. Jared Goff plays his best football when he's in the cozy confines of a dome. And against a run defense in the Dallas Cowboys that has struggled, I think is fair to say. It's nice to say, nicely put. And you have the best running back duo in the NFL. Like, this just played so well into the hands and the identity of this Lions team.
Yeah, you're 1,000% right. By the way, the Lions, you mentioned that Rams game. Let's not sleep on week 18 when they have to go to Chicago, a team that people seem to still not be believing in. But, man, Jared Goff at Soldier Field, possibly with the division on the line. Let's see how he handles the cold there. One significant note from this game, want to make sure we get everybody caught up on. CeeDee Lamb left this game and is in concussion protocol. Took an absolutely nasty hit in the course of this game. Was out of the game. Now, obviously for the Cowboys, they have George Pickens. They have somebody that they believe can step up and be a one for them over the course of the rest of the season. It's not like he hasn't had to do that already. But certainly when you think about what they need to get offensively, having anything less than the best of your weapons is a less than ideal situation as we come down the home stretch. Number one, most important, is that CD be healthy, but this is certainly a blow for the Cowboys.
It was really scary. It was a really scary scene. It felt very reminiscent of Tua. That's the most important thing. You take care of yourself, especially with head injuries and concussions. The NFL approaches that with a ton of sensitivity, as they should. So, to your point, first and foremost, I'm hoping for the best for CeeDee Lamb. I'm hoping he can get out there as soon as possible. You know, Kaylee Hartung was saying on the broadcast last night that he was telling the medical team, like, hey, look, I want to go back out there. I'm good. I don't need help. And I do understand that feeling from CeeDee Lamb, who's such a huge part of this team. And, you know, he's a competitor. He wants to go out there and win a game that he knew it was kind of win or go home. I do understand that. But I hate to see that for CeeDee Lamb as a person and as a player. And then there's another side of that, and that's the football side. The Cowboys, as much as we want to write them off and as much as I kind of already mentally have, they still are statistically alive. But that is going to be an uphill climb without CeeDee Lamb. Like you said, George Pickens can carry a big part of that load at times. And in games this season, George Pickens has been the Cowboys one. But that's what I think is so special about this Cowboys offense is on any given night, CD can be a one, George Pickens can be a one. So yes, you have George Pickens that can carry that load, but when you don't have a CeeDee Lamb out there to take attention away from the defense, that just makes life so much more difficult for George Pickens and for Dak Prescott.
We'll keep you updated throughout the show if we get any updates on CD's health, obviously. Now, while you were footballing last night, there was a huge, significant moment in the NBA. A streak came to an end only days after we were talking about what the value of the double-digit scoring streak is. We don't have to ask that anymore. LeBron's double-digit scoring streak snapped at 1,297 games. In a win, it should be noted, in a win against Toronto, on a play, it should be noted, where Bron was driving the lane. Could have had the opportunity to try and win the game, but instead, as you see here, as he comes up, could have had the opportunity to try to win it. Instead, he sends it over to Rui Hachimura, who has been wanting opportunities to get the ball in his hands more. It's a great basketball play. Rui hits the three, but it ends the streak. It's sort of that bittersweet moment, Caroline.
It is. It's sad. I mean, whether you think that the streak had any sort of oomph to it or not, anytime you see somebody doing something for 19 straight years and it comes to a close, that's sad. You know, me as a sports fan, it makes me sad. But I also think it's incredibly indicative of where LeBron is in his career. I think it was the perfect example of the role that LeBron James is playing in this Lakers offense and in this Lakers team. He's not going to be the guy. He's not going to be the guy that carries this Lakers team on his shoulders. He can't. That's not what he can do at this point in his career. But what he is really great at is moving the ball around, getting the ball in the hands of guys who can make plays. And so LeBron having a look, but choosing to pass it to Rui Hachimura, who had a better look than LeBron had, I think that's one, selfless basketball, and I think two, proves that LeBron is okay in this new role. I was worried about that. Maybe not worried isn't the right word, but I was curious about if LeBron was and how LeBron was taking having a new role at 41 years old with Luka and with Austin Reeves playing the kind of basketball that they're playing. I think last night proved to me that not only is this a new era of LeBron James basketball, LeBron James has accepted this new role and has accepted that this is a new version of LeBron James basketball.
It also just eliminates another conversation to have around the Lakers that has nothing to do with the outcome. Like, look, I'm not saying that the Lakers and JJ Redick and LeBron James aren't capable of shutting out the noise. You have to be when you're a Laker. You have to be when you're around LeBron. But let's be honest. We're talking about the snap streak because it's wildly important. But the most important thing that happened last night was Austin Reeves, 41 minutes, 44 points. Austin Reeves was absolutely uncontainable in this game. The reason they won this game wasn't just because LeBron made the right basketball play at the end. That's part of it. It's also because Austin Reeves went out and did what Austin Reeves has been doing a lot this year, looking like an all-star, looking like an elite player. Sometimes the hardest part about greatness is that it can suck the oxygen out of the room unintentionally. And that so often seems to be what happens around LeBron James. You know, that when you have the greatness and the Q rating, if you want to call it that, the moment that everybody pays attention to is LeBron. So yes, snapping the streak is the most important part of what we saw last night. It was just another NBA regular season game otherwise. But the fact is, the way that the Lakers won had a little to do with LeBron making the right basketball play at the end and a lot to do with Austin Reeves. Any chance that the Lakers can get to sort of assert who they are in this new era of LeBron, I think is actually weirdly a win for the Lakers. We got a lot of NBA we're going to get you caught up on over the course of the next couple of hours. A lot to get to. But coming up, speaking of basketball, Paul Scheer going to join us. Massive Clippers fan. We'll see how he feels about CP3. The argument that it's classless and disloyal to put CP3 to cut CP3 is just stupid. The Clippers are giving him a lifeline, a chance to compete on a team in his final season, not just ride the bench. He will play, and the Clippers need to think of the future and not give limited time to someone who's gone in a year. And according to his IJ stories, not happy. That from Paul Scheer. He joins us now, actor, comedian, podcaster, got a new YouTube channel out called Enter the Dark Web. Paul, I love the analysis on the Clippers. We are going to get right to it. They seem to be weaving a pretty dark web right now. All right, you've had time to sit with the CP3 news. How are we feeling?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for having me here. And that tweet was before some news came to light. Because what I think we have seen here from the Clippers in a very definitive way is we have a no a-hole policy. And CP3 was being an a-hole. And they went in and they made a very difficult decision. This is like breaking up with your significant other before Christmas. You don't want to do it. It doesn't look good. It's not easy when you come home alone and you have to explain it. But it was the right move for the relationship. And I'm all for it because here's the thing. Are we having a little bit of revisionist history? Everyone's freaking out. How could you do this to CP3? Oh my God. Oh my God. This guy is the Chevy Chase of the NBA. Okay. He's not loved. He's not liked. He hasn't been relevant for many years. Now, is he a Hall of Famer? Absolutely. Does he deserve better treatment? Sure. But here's what I think happened. He was like, I'm done. I'm out this season. I'll act any which way I want. I am free and clear. And guess what? He wasn't. He got kicked off. I love it. I love it because it just says no one is untouchable.
We also have a very similar policy here on this show. Yeah, so you made the cut. Congratulations.
Woo,
some days I don't.
Yeah. Phew. Yeah. Easy. Yeah. Close one there. So you grew up a Knicks fan, correct?
I did. Yes. And I moved to the West Coast Knicks.
The West Coast Knicks. That very well put. So what made you make the plunge from a Knicks fan to Clippers fandom?
You know, when I moved out here to Los Angeles, I really wanted to have I love the NBA. And I wanted to have a basketball team I could root for. And it's hard. You know, when you're from the East Coast, all those games are happening at 4 o'clock. I'm not going to be able to watch those games. When I came out here, I wasn't able to afford like NBA TV or whatever it was on. I wanted to be here. I wanted to go to games. I wanted to have a team. I couldn't be a Lakers fan, be too bandwagony. So I jumped in on the Clippers at a really exciting time, too. It was right around Lob City, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan. It's like it was an exciting time to be a Clippers fan. And I would argue it's been an exciting time since, and look, I will say, yeah, there's a lot of NBA fans out there that are brainwashed to not like the Clippers. I would love to talk to them about that.
Wait, what's your sales pitch to everybody? What are you telling them?
Well, here's my thing. Charlotte, New Orleans, Houston, Phoenix. It's like there's so many teams that are in the same boat, spending a lot of money, not having championships, but yet we are the punching bag. Does the Nets take as much hit as the Clippers? I mean, they did the most insane thing, and they blew up their team in 1 year. No one talks about the Nets anymore. They fired Steve Nash after 5 games in the next season. All I'm saying is people like punching at the Clippers because of what was happening in the past. But you look at the landscape of the NBA, they're just like any other team. You go, well, they moved in to LA when the Lakers were already there. Yeah, look at Brooklyn. I mean, again, it's not too dissimilar.
All right, so you host a podcast called How Did This Get Made? All right, so feel free to include Caroline and I.
There's my wife, by the way. Sorry,
bringing
out something. Hi, Dean. You're on Yahoo Sports.
There we go. So
welcome.
I feel like this is Caroline's and I opportunity to try and become your co-host. We're going to do How Did This Get Made, the sports version, right? So we're going to figure out some teams. So if you were doing How Did This Get Made, the sports movie or the sports version, how quickly would you get to the Clippers? Would that be one of your first choices?
I think definitely in the top 5, right? Because they passed on Larry Bird in when they were up north. I forget, not Baltimore. It's Buffalo. When they were in Buffalo, they were like, we don't want to take this Larry Bird guy. So I feel like that's definitely a move. But I have to say, the two teams that would rise to the top right here would have to be the Nets with that superstar team, right? That team that barely lasted a season. And then right under that, I would have to go to the Suns when Matt Ashiba comes in and just blows up this team and just pushes it so far back. Those two recent constructions, I say are way more damning than what the Clippers did with Kawhi. Kawhi got injured, right? That's his oh, he's load management, all that kind of stuff, which I don't necessarily buy. I mean, he's injured. That's it, and but it's not like a disaster like those other teams are.
Okay, so let's continue this theme of combining your two passions of sports and filmmaking. So let's say
Yes.
this movie, your version of the Clippers movie gets made.
Yes.
What role are you playing in it?
Well, look, I'm a bald man, so I have to go play a young bomber. A young bomber. I mean, there's only so many roles that I can play, and so yeah, I would have to play a young bomber. I actually do have a jersey that says Bomber Junior on it, which I enjoy wearing.
Perfect.
And one time was wearing it while sitting next to Steve Ballmer, and died for a picture on the court. Could not get it, but it's a good one.
Wait, you couldn't get the picture on the? Did he say no?
I
Did
felt
you, like,
too him. No, I felt too embarrassed. Like, look, I actually directed Steve Ballmer in in Serge Ibaka's cooking and interview show called "How Hungry
No
Are You?"
way.
And I have to say, Ballmer, one of the best guys, came on the show the day that they let go or actually traded Pat Bev, one of my favorite clips of all time. And he flew in from Las Vegas just to do a spot on Serge Ibaka's show. Like, I love Steve and what he does, and every the way that he cares about the team is really interesting. I love what he did this week, where he basically told Ty and Lawrence Frank, like, look, guys, you figure it out. It's on you. I'm not going to just make these crazy moves just to make crazy moves.
So you mentioned Lob City earlier, obviously, and Blake Griffin, we all know, he's got the
Love
entire comedic career, right? So
Yeah.
you had the chance to work with him on the Space Jam live read back in 2014.
Yeah, I did.
What hit you when you because you're looking at an athlete be a comedian? Did you immediately see chops there?
Well, look, Blake really showed off his chops when the NBA went on strike back in the day. He took an intern job, in quotes, an intern job at Funny or Die, and he started making all these videos and being in all these great bits. So Blake is exceptionally funny. I've improvised with Blake in an improv show. We've done this live read together. He's come on shows that I've done. Blake, to me, is just an untapped comedic talent. I think he's actually showing off more and more those skills.
He's hilarious. Every
really
time I'll watch him on something on social media or a commercial, he's such a chameleon. He's great. And it sounds like you've
Yeah.
had an opportunity to work with so many players and front office members in the NBA. Who's one that is actually like a closet comedian that maybe we as NBA fans don't realize?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. I have to say the guy that I mean, there's so many good ones. Klay Thompson was very funny. Getting to see everybody hang out with Serge Ibaka was great, right? You get to just see everybody kind of a little bit looser. They're not answering questions, in this, media setting, which I think sometimes gets people really buttoned up. I will say that I know for a fact Kawhi is hilarious. Like, and people don't get that. I think the way that he plays the media is a very interesting way. But yeah, man, I'm a big fan. I think the NBA is a funny league. If you're going to put all the sports leagues together, the NBA is definitely the funniest.
All right, so how did this get made, celebrating 15 years as a pod? All right, you've seen plenty of sports movies. What are the ingredients of a truly awful, terrible sports movie?
Oh, a terrible one. Here's the thing. I think a sports movie is unassailable. You can't mess up a sports movie because we want to see the underdog win. The worst sports movies make you well up. You feel like you want to be there. As a matter of fact, I'm producing a movie that's coming out about curling just because I'm obsessed about this idea of like a sports movie. It's about this like little Minnesota team that won the gold. And I just feel like it's such a ripe area because we're always looking for character arcs. We're always looking for great stories. And there's no better story than a person overcoming everything. It's whether it's Dennis Quaid as a pitcher who's 50 or whatever that movie was, The Rookie. We want to see it. We want to see it from Rudy. I have yet to see a bad sports movie, I think, with the exception of Air Bud 4.
classically bad sports movie,
Yeah,
of course,
love it.
as we all know. And it is so refreshing to hear you say that because Fitz is a known sports movie hater.
Yeah,
He
Okay.
I am.
hates sports
Mm-hmm.
movies. And I'm the person, I will well up at Rudy every single time I watch it.
Right.
Doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. It's a classic. It's an all-timer.
So-
Sports, look, hear me out. I'm just saying sports
Okay.
by themselves are dramatic enough, right? Like if I really want to
Right.
see something dramatic, I'll just watch Notre Dame. I don't need to watch a fake movie about Notre Dame. I could just go watch Notre Dame.
I understand that. And I feel like here's the thing. We all get selective amnesia when we're watching a sports movie, right? Will they make it? Yeah, they're going to make it.
Oh, I hope.
It's like every Rocky movie. I'm like, I don't know if they're going to pull this one out. He does.
Spoiler
I would
alert.
say that, but I don't know what it is. I think it's like giving over to the idea. I hear what you're saying. Like, but I also feel like the best commentators, the best stories are when you have there's some personal stakes to it too. Like a great game is a great game, but when you know the story of the players, I don't know. I think it just adds an extra element to the drama.
Okay,
Some
so
stakes.
we could spend all day talking about some of the great shows that you've been on because we're massive fans. But we're a fantasy football company in large part.
yeah.
You were part of the league, obviously. So
Absolutely.
were you a big fantasy football junkie coming into the league? Was that part of your background?
Here's the thing. I actually almost didn't audition for the show because I didn't play fantasy football. I watched football, right? I was a Jets fan. And you have to remember that when the league first started, fantasy was popular, but it's nowhere near where it is now. Like it has exploded since we started. I think it was definitely much more of a real deep sports fan thing. And now all of a sudden, I remember when we first started doing the show, the NFL was like, we want no involvement in fantasy. We find that to be like sports betting. Now, comically, where are we at? Like the NFL has their own fantasy site and everything is betting. So it's like that's how far we have come. One of the coolest things that happened though was the NFL never let us use like logos or anything like that. They didn't want to be associated with us except for Jerry Jones, who was like, I don't care. Have him come after me. And Jerry Jones came on the show. We shot at the Dallas Cowboys practice facility out here in outside of Los Angeles. Let us shoot with his players and everything. It was one of the best. I mean, that was the cool thing too. I know I said that NBA players are exceptionally funny, but we had so many great NFL players on our show who just killed it.
Whether you love Jerry or hate Jerry, he's going to get himself and his team on the TV screen.
Yeah.
On the camera.
Jerry was
Any
in
chance he
Landman. Did
possibly
you see
can.
that?
Yes,
Jerry was in Landman giving like a deathbed monologue to John Hamm. I was like, what is this?
What can't he do? Get
What
you a
can't he
man
do?
that can do both, that Jerry Jones. Paul, you're incredible, and we really appreciate you joining us. So tell us a little bit more about your new project, Enter the Dark Web.
Yeah, so basically the show I do with Rob Hubel, who we started off doing Human Giant together. We perform a bunch together, and we wanted to make a show where we find the weirdest stuff on the internet. We have special guests, like this week, Jerry O'Connell's on the show, and we recreated a very famous commercial for a toy called the Oozinator, which was a gun that, and use your imagination of what it would look like, just shot out goo all on kids' faces. And this is a commercial that aired. And when you watch it, you're like, wait a sec, who approved this? And so we reenacted the Oozinator with him. We get to do a bunch of really fun stuff. It's just really it's the clips that you pass around to your friends. We just kind of curate the best ones.
Paul, we really appreciate your time, your insight. I hope the Clippers season turns around just so that you'll come back and you can gloat to everybody about being the Clippers fan that called it first.
All I want to do is just have a good competitive season. And I am thrilled that I can come on today after they have a very decisive win in Atlanta, because if they would have lost in Atlanta, this would have been a miserable call.
We appreciate your time. Everybody, check out Enter the Dark Web and check him out on social media at Paul Scheer. We appreciate you, Paul. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you guys. Bye-bye. See you later.
Keep breaking it down. We're going to figure out what games are the best this weekend and what games you might want to save some time and avoid. Kendall Baker joins us next to preview games the way only this show can. Number 1 versus number 2 next weekend, and it means not that much, really. What a weird sport. That from Kendall Baker. You read him every single day on Yahoo Sports AM, Yahoo Sports AM. He joins us now for the first time on Yahoo Sports Daily. I'm going to learn how to say all of these things. Kendall, we appreciate you hanging out with us, and we figured that the best way to break you right into the tone of our show is to preview games the way only this show can. It's time to do Can't Wait. This is where we sort of bring the spirit of Bart Scott into the show, and here's the key. We'll call out the game, and what we're going to do is go around the room and figure out whether this game is a Bart, and if it's a Bart, you'll hear this. Can't wait. Excited for the game. But what's the opposite of a Bart? Well, naturally, because we do everything so highbrow here, the opposite of a Bart would be a fart, and you'll hear this. Yeah, that's right. So it gets everybody. So
that's a good reaction. That's a fair reaction.
The answers are simple. You just got to tell us if it's can't wait, if it's a Bart or a fart, and then we'll figure it out from there. Okay, so Bart or fart, we'll start with this one. Ohio State, Indiana, you just mentioned not a lot on the line. So is this a Bart or a fart?
Oh, it's still a Bart. I mean, I think the reason why it would be a fart is out of those two teams' control. And obviously, if this was Ohio State, let's say, I don't know, Oregon, maybe it'd be more of a fart. But I think considering Indiana's history and the fact that they're in this game, for them in particular, this game means a ton. And again, like the reasons why it wouldn't mean a lot is not really their fault or anything. So I still give this a Bart, but for reasons that we know in conference championships being less important now, it's arguably on the fence.
Even though it doesn't have crazy college football playoff implications, it's totally a Bart. And also Heisman implications as well. Julian Sand and Fernando Mendoza both probably headed to New York City. So how much does this game have weight in the Heisman Trophy conversation? It's such a Bart. But what about this one? This one definitely has more college football playoff implications just with seeding. Where the game I'm going to, where I am right now in Atlanta, Georgia, Alabama, SEC championship game. Bart or fart, in your opinion?
So this is interesting. This whole concept. I feel like I need the schedule in front of me because I think the only reason any of these games would be farts is if there's another game at the same time that's more of a Bart. So I don't know what time this game's on. I'm still going to go with Bart just because.
Can't wait.
It's Alabama, Georgia, it's SEC. I mean, it's just hard to say any of these games are not worth watching. So I'll go with Bart.
Look, I appreciate your spirit on it because this is a Bart. Like, it's a rivalry. You got these two teams. You've got the revenge aspect of it, and you've got the total chaos that I keep wanting to see the College Football Playoff Committee held to. Like, I want to see – I'm going to be very clear. I don't root for or against any college football team. I just root for chaos. I need Georgia to get absolutely destroyed in this game, like run out of the building, out of this game, just so that we – like, I'm talking the worst loss in Alabama history is what I need. Like, if Alabama takes the worst loss we've ever seen – yeah, this is what I need.
That creates chaos. Yeah.
Exactly. I see, Kendall, we are already connecting on the spirit of chaos. I just want the committee to have to figure out what to do with the Georgia that lost the SEC championship game by 40. So, like, it's a long-lasting part because the implications will be never ending. What about this one? All right, Kendall, this one, a little tougher, okay? The ACC championship game, Duke versus Virginia. Duke, Virginia. You really going to call this a part? Come on.
It's a Bart if Duke wins for the reasons you just said. But
can't wait.
So I'll say fart though. I'll say fart because it's just on paper not a great game. Virginia smoked them first time around. But just to follow up on Jason's point, like if we're rooting for chaos, obviously as has been well discussed this week, Duke wins. It's very interesting. And the one thing I will say that people haven't mentioned, probably because it's very unlikely to happen, but just going to throw it out there. Like, what happens if Duke wins? And then also, what happens if James Madison somehow loses to Troy? Are we talking about the Mountain West? I don't know if you guys have covered that here, but that's a scenario I haven't really seen covered. Again, it's probably because JMU is a huge favorite. But, yeah, if Duke wins, the whole weekend becomes about, all right, what's the committee going to do?
Dan Mullen
into
the college football playoff?
I've got a UNLV helmet directly behind me. I know there's a 1.6% chance, according to the people, that UNLV is headed to the college football playoff. Can't wait.
Yeah. So you know what's going to be interesting is I can't wait to see the ratings for these games because as we're seeing here, like it's sort of like there's better games on paper, but in terms of like what happens if a certain team wins, like Indiana, Ohio State, for example, like they're both in this game. It's very clearly Duke wins, creates chaos. If Virginia wins, they're in. So it'll be interesting to see what people decide to watch, like the games with higher stakes or the better games.
I feel like you could call the actual game itself a fart because we've seen it. And it was a fart. It was a total blowout. Virginia blew Duke out the first time they played the regular season. But the implications are a Bart because it's so juicy. Same thing with the Big 12 championship game. Like the implications, if Texas Tech wins, then okay, it'll just, it'll go chalk. Texas Tech is in. BYU is probably on the outside looking in. But if BYU wins, then BYU is in. Texas Tech is also in. And that leaves Notre Dame out of the college football playoff. So the implications of some of these games, like the actual games themselves, aren't as interesting as the implications, but the games with no implications, it feels like, are the better games that we can see, on the field and on paper.
Yep. Totally agree.
All right, let's move to the NFL. I don't even know why we're asking you this. I don't want to assume I know what that does. But Bart or fart, Titans, Browns.
I mean, look, I'm a huge sports guy, so it's hard for me to say anything's a fart, but this is the easiest fart yet. Just show me the Myles Garrett highlights at the end of the game. How many sacks did he get? That's all I really care about, frankly.
Oh, see, I think you guys are missing out on just a couple of things here. Number one, the drama of Cam Ward and the way Titans fans feel about the fact that their quarterback may have not separated himself into greatness. And then the fact that, I don't know if you saw this, but Google announced that the most searched athlete in the world in 2025 on Google was Shedeur Sanders. Like, at some point, that is an actual – he was the 6th most searched person across all categories worldwide in everything. Shedeur. Like, so to me, there's just going to be the inevitable. Again, I don't think I like anything that has actual substance to it. Apparently, I just like things that make people yell because one way or the other, if Shedeur goes out and shows out, if he goes out and just absolutely destroys the Titans in this game and Cam Ward kind of sucks, there's going to be all this, Shedeur should have been the number 1 overall pick. If Shedeur doesn't play well and it's against the Titans, the sky is falling. You guys, you need to this is a Bart. This game is a the game itself.
I'm all for that. I'm all for that. I'm all for that discourse. I guess I would just say that what you just described, that discourse coming out of the weekend, like, is interesting and for all the reasons you said, but there's going to be, we're getting towards the end of the season. Playoff races, I feel like, are still going to be. These teams are out of it. I mean, I guess you could argue the picks and things like that, but listen, if Myles Garrett has 4 sacks, something crazy, I will have regretted not watching the game. So, to your point,
Fitz, are you watching this game?
I mean, I watch everything. I'm the wrong person because I'll have it on a TV. But I'll evil maniacal laugh every time one of these teams sucks, which means I'm going to laugh a lot. Like, I'm going to be working fully on my evil maniacal laugh for the day. I'll have it on. It'll be a side screen.
This is a good highlights game, like, how's Shedeur do? How'd Garrett do? Good highlights game. Let me see what happened after the fact, after I watch something else.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm not going to waste my very, very precious time on watching Titans-Browns, but if anybody watches it and has a great time, I love that for them.
Yes.
Kendall, you've covered in Yahoo Sports AM in your newsletter the MLS Cup final. We've got Inter Miami against Vancouver. Messi. Is that a Bart or a fart?
Oh, that's a huge Bart. I mean,
can't wait.
Just imagine telling somebody 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even more crazier, hey, Lionel Messi's going to be playing the MLS. And he's going to be in the final against Thomas Mueller, who's also, maybe big-time soccer fans aren't as familiar with him, but he's also like a global legend. I think they've played 10 times. He's won 7. Messi's won 3. They've both won World Cups. So I just think, like, this is like a dream situation for MLS and for fans. Like, it's hard to get these kind of stakes in MLS historically, so it doesn't get much bigger than this, frankly, for them.
I don't disagree, and I think the star power. Look, I mean, it feels like for MLS to have these names involved in this moment just feels absolutely huge. This is a Bart for everybody. It's great for casuals, and Carolina and I talk about this all the time, that your biggest moments have to draw in casuals. What about a little bit of college basketball action? We'll figure out if this is a Bart or a fart for you. We've got number 4 Duke versus number 7, surprising to many, Michigan State. Bart or a fart?
Listen, you guys picked the wrong person for this game because everything's a Bart, man. Like I want to watch everything.
It's just a good week in sports.
Can't wait.
Yeah, like I'm a big sports guy. That's why it's a good thing to be if you're doing this job. But no, I think this is a very interesting matchup. I've been I've loved college basketball so far in ways in which I feel like recent years I haven't. I think that's a result of better matchups earlier. This ACC SEC challenge is always interesting, and the BUZZER twins, particularly Cameron, like kind of must see right now. I had a stat this earlier this week, which is last year Cooper Flagg led Duke in every major statistic and then went number one overall. We may be watching a deja vu situation. Cam currently leads Duke in every major category and might go number one overall. So I think the hype around him is starting to build. People that follow the sport closely obviously know that, but I think this is one of those games, national weekend, two big programs. This might be the game that a lot of casuals start to realize, oh, we might be watching another number one pick on Duke.
And I think this is when some of the casuals start to turn the calendar to college basketball season. Yeah. As the college football season winds down, regular season at least, as the NFL regular season starts to wind down, you start to look for these kind of matchups of the heavyweights in Duke and Michigan State before you get into conference play. But one thing that I love about your newsletter is I hear about sports upcoming and events upcoming that I wouldn't normally pay attention to. I'm not an F1 head. I haven't watched Drive to Survive, but I've been told that if you start watching it, all of a sudden you're going to be the biggest F1 fan of all time. So tell me, as someone who's not an F1 fan, why the F1 season finale is a Bart.
So it's a Bart because basically the title's on the line, and that's between Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, who are both McLaren drivers, and then Max Verstappen, who races for Red Bull. And Verstappen's won 4 straight championships. This will be his 5th straight, which only 2 other drivers have ever done. He might go down, and it's sort of on pace to go down as the best to ever do it. So that's enough. I think, if you look at this season too, it didn't look like it was going to end up like this. Like the McLaren drivers were way ahead. Max was in 3rd, distant 3rd, kind of being written off. And recent F1 seasons, because of Max's dominance, has sort of not been exciting at the end in recent years. So it's just like all of these converging things is giving us this season finale that actually has a lot of stakes. And so I think, I don't have all the scenarios exactly written down, but basically Verstappen needs to podium to win, and if he comes in first, which he's recently done a lot, he could win this thing depending on where Norris and Piastri finish. So it's pretty much like best case scenario for somebody who hasn't followed the sport all season. Come in last race of the year, there's 3 guys who could potentially win, 2 of whom are teammates, which introduces an interesting wrinkle where if towards the end of the race one of them is leading, maybe their teammate starts to play teammate mode and starts to keep Max behind them. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics going into this that I think make for an interesting race that maybe, other races don't have.
Yeah, and I would argue that you should watch F1 with a buddy that loves F1 because the broadcasts themselves are electric. The way they present the product is absolutely incredible. What's also incredible is Yahoo Sports AM. It is always a part. You can't wait for it every single day. Easy to sign up for it. Get the newsletter. It gets in your inbox every day. And, of course, follow Kendall at Kendall Baker. Kendall, overall review of your first time on Yahoo Sports Daily, a Bart or a fart?
It was a Bart.
Can't wait.
As I said, I might be the wrong guy for this game because it takes a lot for me to give up. I guess I gave the Browns game a fart, but I was on the edge there even. So, but as somebody who puts this together every week and sort of looks to the weekend, the best part about sports is it's just always amazing things going on at all times. People say there's certain parts of the year where there's a lot of sports. It's year round. There's always crazy. I mean, we've got Messi, we've got all these GOATs in the conversation this weekend in action. Come on. Who doesn't love this stuff?
Yeah, who has it better than us? Nobody. We appreciate your time, Kendall.
Nobody.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us. You got to come back soon. Hang out with us again.
Thanks, guys.
Kendall Baker there. All right, he's a Hall of Famer for us. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, Belichick Kraft could go in together. Oh, we'll tell you about it next. Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick have been named contributor and coach finalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2026. That's right. There is a very real chance that Kraft and Belichick could be together, getting their busts together at the same time, being enshrined together at the same ceremony, together giving the same speeches. And again, Carolina, as I continue to say this morning, as an agent of chaos, I kind of love the awkwardness of having a divorced couple have to sit up there and accept this award together.
Yeah, did we mention this was together? Did we mention that Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick would be, I don't know, under the same roof? That's what I'm hearing here. Yikes, first of all. It's not underreported, the feud, the history that these two have. And we know it's been well reported. Robert Kraft has even come out and said that, look, we welcome Bill Belichick back to New England. We would love to have Bill Belichick back in Foxborough. It feels like this feud is Bill Belichick just having big beef with the Patriots. Obviously, we know that he didn't want Patriot scouts in the facility at North Carolina, that he is letting whatever issues he has with Robert Kraft and the Patriots organization get in the way of his job right now. So Fitz, I don't see that there is any way that Bill Belichick, somebody that is so jaded and so grumpy and so just petty, I don't see any way Bill Belichick has any interest in burying the hatchet with Robert Kraft all of a sudden just to make nice in Canton.
Yeah, I mean, this is an awkward situation for Bill, but I don't think it is for Robert Kraft. And look, we've talked to people on this show about what the sense is in New England, and the sense seems to be that the Patriots don't really care. So this is one of those instances where you have a breakup and one person's still really not over it, and the other person is. One person has moved on to coach at North Carolina and not having a ton of success. The other is sitting as the owner of a team right now that's the number one seed if the playoffs were to start today in the AFC, right? Like, so you've got somebody that's moved on that feels pretty darn good about everything versus somebody that is still feels like it's some level stuck in what was in the past. But aside from all of that, Caroline, like as much as we assign these two men to so much of the legacy of the New England Patriots, I don't think it's clear that Robert Kraft is a first ballot Hall of Famer to me. For me personally, for an owner to go into the Hall of Fame, I wanted him to have done something so transcendent for the league that it's bigger than just the team you owned. Because when you own a team, sure, you're hiring the right people. Congratulations. But where's the line on that? Are we going to put in every owner that ever hires a successful coach? I don't know. But if you're Jerry Jones, for example, who may or may not have had success on the field, but certainly changed the entire business trajectory of the NFL, you're a Hall of Famer. You've changed the entire way that the league makes money. You put a mark on the league as a contributor that certainly will be felt forever. But we've seen commissioners have to battle for their spots in the NFL. We've seen owners in the past have to battle for their spots in the NFL in the Hall of Fame. I have a hard time just putting Robert Kraft in because he owned a really good football team. Because to me, like that's the bare bones. That's what we expect of an owner. Like, great, you hired somebody awesome and you spent good money, and those people drafted a great quarterback. I don't know what about that makes you individually a Hall of Fame owner to me.
Well, I think he's a Hall of Fame owner. Maybe first ballot is a question, but he won 6 Super Bowls. I mean, owners of that caliber that have that much success, like he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. The question is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Will he get into the Hall of Fame this go around? There's never been an owner that's been up for the Hall of Fame that has been a first ballot Hall of Famer. So, I look at what, to your point, and look, we pick on Jerry Jones all the time, probably because he's really easy to pick on. But Jerry Jones has done a lot for the league. Like, Jerry Jones has kind of transformed the league from where it was in the late 70s, 80s to now where it is in 2025, which feels like an impenetrable force in sports and media and culture and lifestyle. Robert Kraft hasn't done that. Look, Robert Kraft has had a big impact on the league, but not like that. So I do think that Robert Kraft is a Hall of Famer. I do think he deserves to be a Hall of Famer. First ballot, I don't think so. And let's remember that voters only have 3 finalists. So if it's between Kraft and Belichick, it's Belichick. Bill Belichick is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's won 6 Super Bowls as a head coach. He won 2 more with the Giants as a defensive coordinator. He has 8 rings. Bill Belichick is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Again, as much as I make fun of him, because he deserves to be made fun of, because my goodness. We could have the Belichick or Brady debate all day long. Who was the more important piece of those Super Bowl teams? I think we all know, and we can probably all agree, it was Brady. But Belichick still coached those teams. And Bill Belichick still deserves to be not just enshrined in Canton forever, but he deserves to be a full first ballot Hall of Famer. A term that I do think gets thrown around just a little bit too much in what we do, Fitz, but he fits that bill. No pun intended.
Yeah, it's a term that, like, knowing a couple of Hall of Fame voters very well, it's a term that absolutely just drives Hall of Fame voters crazy, because they say constantly, to your point, there are so many restrictions on how many people you can vote for. The concept of a first ballot Hall of Famer just presumes that somebody comes in and they're just so much better than everybody else that they must make it to the top of everyone's ballots. That's just, there's a lot of context that goes around that. I think for me, when you are one of the best of all time, and look, was it Brady or was it Belichick, is such a funny debate to me, because to me, the answer is always going to be it was a little bit of both. Like, we'll never know if Brady would have developed into Brady without Belichick. We'll never know if Belichick would have won without Brady. And frankly, I don't care. What I do care about is they won a lot of football games together. And certainly we answered the question of, was it more Brady, or could Brady win without Belichick, was answered almost immediately. Can Belichick win without Brady? We still don't have a real answer to that. But that will tie me back to the Robert Kraft conversation, because frankly, like, let's see what happens with Vrabel and Drake May. And certainly if you put your team in a situation where they have another dynastic run, then yeah, maybe you've done something so wildly unique as an owner. Putting back multiple dynastic runs is so hard to do. For me, like, the credit of the Patriots goes to, if we're going to sit here and say, can Brady win without Belichick? Can Belichick win without Brady? Then I think there's a fair question of, can Robert Kraft win without Brady and Belichick? And so far this season, he is, but that doesn't constitute first ballot Hall of Famer to me. I also think that something Jory Epstein, our great NFL reporter, has pointed out several times, is that this is something Kraft has been lobbying for. He is advancing in age. He wants this consideration while he's healthy enough to really take advantage of this consideration. So it is interesting to me that, certainly, because Jory's been talking about this lobbying for a year, and now we have him in this situation as a finalist. I wonder what their speeches look like in general, though, Caroline, because, like, one cannot have a speech without thanking the other. And when they're on a stage a few feet from each other, let's be clear, like, the real amazing solution here would be 2 grown men acting like 2 grown men, putting whatever their differences are beside them and embracing the moment of going in together. Like, that can either be wildly chaotic or that can be a really beautiful thing. And it's up to them and how they handle it to see how it'll be perceived.
Well, be an adult. Like, if you can't put your whatever issues you have aside for literally 5 minutes to have a moment to bask in the greatest honor that the National Football League can offer you, then I don't know what to tell. I think that it says so much more about you and your integrity and your morality than anything else. Just put it aside. And Bill Belichick did, I think it was on Instagram. So, like, definitely Bill didn't post it himself. His team did, but still, Bill said it was an honor and, wanted to celebrate it with wanted to celebrate it with all Patriots. And that was, to me, a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, including Robert Kraft. Is he going to name him by name? Of course not. But put your stuff aside for 5 seconds. Be a big girl. Put your big girl panties on. Put a smile on and acknowledge that you two did it together. And to your point about Robert Kraft, about he's pushing for this while he's still alive and can enjoy it, I think posthumous inductions into Hall of Fames are so devastating. And sometimes there's nothing that you can do to really control that. But I do think while they're alive and while they can enjoy it, while they can bask in everything they enjoyed in their careers and achieved in their careers, just doing it posthumously just feels so just devastating to me. Still an honor, of course, to their families, but it is a devastating thing that I think that we have in sports. But Fitz, I'll ask you quickly. Is Robert Kraft a Hall of Famer? Not necessarily first ballot, but is he a Hall of Famer?
I think you can tell the story
if Robert
of his
Kraft
entire
isn't, then which owner is?
Right now, very few. I think unless you've just changed for me, and I'm not a voter, but unless you've changed the entire trajectory of the league, simply owning a successful team, I mean, that congratulations, you hired the right people. That doesn't make you a Hall of Famer. If you do it over and over and over, if you're the Steelers and every coach you've ever hired has worked out, if you have that sort of run, then yes, you can earn a lot of credit for it. But man, I think we need to see way more sustained success. And I also think you also do have to acknowledge that there were controversies.
Aren't the Patriots
in his time as an owner.
the picture of sustained success?
Oh, well, no, they're the picture of one dominant generation. I mean, let's see another run of greatness like Brady and Belichick before. I mean, when you think about the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers, for example, have had 4 head coaches in the last 50 years, right? Like, and every one of their coaches goes to a Super Bowl. Like, there is something sustained about that, about the structure that was put in its place organizationally. Bill left and the Patriots sucked. And yeah, they're having a better year this year, but it's not all been sunshine and roses when there wasn't a Brady and a Belichick. So I guess to the point that we've had forever, to me, how much of the Patriots' success do we attribute to Kraft, Belichick, and Brady? And my answer is a whole bunch to Brady and a whole bunch to Bill and a whole bunch of thanks for being in the room to Kraft. I don't think that there was something transcendent there. I just think he got it right with two big things.
Isn't that the point of an owner?
I mean, yes, but do we reward every one of them that wins a bunch? I wouldn't. I don't think
they won 6 Super Bowls. 6 Super Bowls.
Brady and Belichick. I mean, you put Brady and Belichick with any owner, I think they would have won 6 Super Bowls. I don't think that Robert Kraft is like. I just don't put that on Robert.
But they did it.
We'll figure.
They did it with Robert Kraft.
There's still time to go. They've got to get through the whole voting process still. So we'll find out if they go in together. Plenty of time. We will figure out their Hall of Fame candidacy as we continue. But coming up next, we got to get into Monday's headlines today. What's coming up next over the weekend that will shock you? We'll predict it now. Welcome back to hour number 2 of Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I am Jason Fitz. We got a lot we're going to get you caught up on this hour, but we will start the hour like we love to start every hour. 3 points. Caroline Fenton, what is on your mind first, my friend?
News updates.
Yeah, some news out of the NWSL. The Washington Spirit offered forward star, celebrity, face of the league, household name Trinity Rodman a 4-year deal that would bring the average compensation per year to about $1 million, which would be the largest contract in NWSL history. And I've talked to people that work within the league, and they say, we want Trinity Rodman to be the face of our league. She is a certified superstar. But the NWSL vetoed that offer from the Washington Spirit. And since then, the NWSL Players Association has filed a grievance against the league, arguing that the league violated the terms of the collective bargaining agreement. And the NWSL responded and said, one, they accused Trinity Rodman of circumventing the NWSL salary cap. And they also said that they are concerned about the future cap and how this salary would fit within the salary cap moving forward. The NWSL said, quote, our goal is to ensure that the very best players in the world, including Trinity, continue to call this league home. We will do everything that we can, utilizing every lever available within our rules to keep Trinity Rodman here. Well, I would say to the NWSL, well, if your number one priority is keeping the best talent in the world in the NWSL, then you will allow this contract to go through. There are much more lucrative contracts to be had overseas. Just last year, we saw Naomi Girma, one of the best defensive players in the NWSL, get a $1.1 million offer to go to Chelsea to play overseas. What's stopping Trinity Rodman, again, a superstar, from going overseas and getting the money that the NWSL has told her you cannot be making? So shame on the NWSL for saying that they want one thing, but not putting literally their money where their mouth is. If the NWSL wants to continue to grow, which I know that is the number one priority of this league, is to grow with it outside of the confines of where they are right now, to be a premier league in the United States, they have to keep premier talent home.
Now, stars grow sports, and stars also grow other stars. Hopefully they figure that out quickly and find a way to bring her to the pitch, because that's what everybody wants to see. I will get you my first point of the hour, and it comes in the form of one man's trash is another man's treasure. Billy Napier headed to JMU and look on a 5-year deal. And this is a big get. If you are James Madison, you needed to get this solidified. You would put yourself in a situation where you are a group of 5 team that has a shot at the playoffs. Absolutely, Billy Napier has had tremendous success at this level, and the failures that he had at Florida mean nothing to that. But I also am just a little shook right now at the concept, because he has a buyout, or had a buyout, with Florida that pays $21 million. $21 million with no offsets. So unlike some coaching contracts that had offset language essentially saying you had to go find work, you had to try to work, and that money would be offset, there was none of that in Billy Napier's deal, meaning he could just sit home with his $21 million. This is a reminder of how much coaches love to coach, because so often, for everybody that's watching this, you're thinking the same thing. If I won the lottery tomorrow for $21 million, I would not go to work the next day. And that's exactly what Billy Napier is doing. With him, with his family, they are deciding that they want to get right back in the grind. This is what makes coaches such different people. It's what makes coaches hard to predict. It's what makes coaches sometimes hard to analyze, because when you don't need to do anything, but you still run to an opportunity that some might say is lesser than where you've been in the past, simply because you want to get back on the sidelines and you want to start the process of rehabilitating your image so you can get back to the biggest school you possibly can. Yes, this is a home run hire for James Madison. Yes, to me, it's curious for Billy Napier. But if we're being honest, this just speaks to how much coach loves coaching. And I'm not going to be one to take that away from him. I'm just interested to see if he can find sustained success in the group of 5 level at JMU, a team that has shown now that they do have a path that can get them into the college football playoff, is currently constructed. Can he continue to explore that process with them and find his footing there? All right, that takes us to our top point of the hour. It's Friday, which means we have to predict Monday. We've got Monday headlines coming at you way too early. This is what we're going to do. Extra read all about it. We'll give you the headline, and then we'll see if we can figure it out. So, Caroline Fenton, I will let you go first. Give me your first headline, my friend. I don't hear Carolina. So that could be I don't hear Carolina.
Okay,
But now
it would be because I was muted, which is something that is pretty important to not have a mic muted if you would like to hear me. But one team that has kind of become the butt of the joke in college football is now Penn State. They fire James Franklin. James Franklin has a top 50 recruiting class at Virginia Tech, and Penn State has like 2 recruits. So Penn State needs to figure their stuff out. Kalani Sitake, the head coach at BYU, said thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to stay in Utah with my crumble cookies. We saw Brian Hartline take the job at South Florida, kind of left Penn State without a date to the prom. So they need to hire someone who is for hire, not a coach that's coaching in the college football playoff, not a coach that's currently under contract. You know who is not under contract, and you know who has ties to the state of Pennsylvania, Fitz? That is one Brian Daboll.
News updates.
So that is my headline for Monday. Happy Now Valley. Penn State hires Brian Daboll. I think he gets the job because we know that the Pagula family, I loved Brian Daboll, called them one of the best coordinators that they have ever had. And so I think that they turned to a Brian Daboll to bring a little bit of that NFL energy into Penn State. I think Penn State needs a home run hire. Is this a home run hire? I don't know. I don't think so. But it at least brings a little something to the mix.
Well, they need a way to distract everybody from the negative news cycle. I don't know if you saw this, but Penn State Athletic Director Pat Kraft had leaked audio that went out from when he was addressing his team talking about the coaching search. It was clearly edited audio. There's questions about the legality of it even being recorded because of the laws in the state of Pennsylvania, and it is out there. And he's flat out telling the players that he's talking to, hey, you can graduate and move on, but if I don't get this right, I'm going to get fired. And he also makes it very clear in that audio that they fired James Franklin because they didn't want to settle for being second best. Yet here we stand. So I like your Daboll call on it, but here's the problem, Caroline. You got the right concept, the wrong coach. The headline is not spicy enough. It's the modern world. We can't sell newspapers without more spice. So I'm going to add a little bit like chili pepper. I'm going to add a little bit like pepper flakes, a little tahini on the rim. We're going to go with a much spicier Monday headline. You got the right school, the wrong guy. How about this? After the SEC championship game, where Alabama loses by 55, and then they miss the college football playoff, everybody wants him bought out. And all of a sudden, Kalen DeBoer says, you know what? Over for DeBoer. Kalen bails for Penn State. How do you like this? I'm stacking a couple of things together. This is what I need to have happen to make this a reality, all right? And Kalen DeBoer needs to decide he just doesn't want to deal with Bama fans anymore, and frankly, who can blame him? But the only way the Bama fans are going to get that mad at him is if he loses the SEC championship game. And if he loses the SEC championship game, but Alabama's still in the playoff hunt, I'm not getting this. I need Alabama to get beat so bad that they are out of the playoff hunt, which then has Betty and Tuscaloosa again wanting to contribute to the buyout of Kalen and says, never mind. Coach says, I don't need your buyout. I'm just going to go to Penn State instead because even Penn State fans aren't as bad as y'all are. What do you think?
I appreciate the chaos and the drama because you imagine if in just the SEC alone, LSU is open, Ole Miss is open, Florida's open, Arkansas is open, Auburn's open, and Alabama's open. Like, can you imagine the craziest offseason coaching carousel just got even crazier? I don't know, though, because you say he's sick of crazy Bama fans. Penn State fans are a noted chill fan base. Definitely not overbearing, definitely not loud, definitely not, demanding. Look, they have every right to be. I'm part of a demanding fan base as well. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't know if Kalen DeBoer would go to Penn State understanding the uphill battle that he would have in the Big Ten. Sure, it's tough in the SEC. It's tough to be the head coach at Alabama. It's really hard to be the guy that comes after the guy. I don't think Penn State's much easier.
You're probably right. I just want chaos. All right, give me another.
I get it.
Give me another chaotic headline.
It's also
Monday.
cold
give me something
there.
That's going to make me buy paper. Oh, yeah. Yes, it is very.
Okay, I'm going to stick with our coaching theme that we have here. I'm going to move to the association and say that by Monday, Ty Lue, head coach of the Clippers, ousted. Bye, Ty Lue. Bye, Ty. You can quote me on that. I know what Steve Ballmer has said. I know that he said, hey, I'm going to allow you the opportunity to work this thing out. I'm not just going to go ahead and make all these crazy moves. But at some point, something's got to give. The Clippers are terrible. There's really no path for the Clippers to get any better. So what's the point with keeping Ty Lue around? At this point, trade everybody, fire everybody, break this thing all the way down, take it all the way down to the foundation. And it starts with not just CP3, but also the head coach. By Monday, bye-bye Ty.
I noticed you didn't try this headline out on Paul Scheer when he joined us early in the show, the Clippers super fan.
I should have.
Here's the thing. Here's why I like the possibility of the headline. The game that they have this weekend is against Memphis. It's at Memphis. Memphis sucks, right? So if you go in and you get rolled by Memphis, is that the moment that everybody says, okay? But the hardest part of this is, yeah, they've got a coach in waiting, basically. Van Gundy can come off the bench and take it. I just don't think anything's going to save him. I really don't. So I wonder, like, is Steve Ballmer going to be patient here? You know, I mean, certainly there's got to be some level of there's a line. I just don't know where the line in the sand is. So I like this. If they get just absolutely run out of Memphis, then maybe that's the way we get there. I'll give you one more headline. How about this one? I'll give you one more from this, a little bit of college football chaos. How about this? The ACC champion, either way, I don't care who it is. We'll say Duke wins the ACC championship, and it's ACC. ACC and the ACC's left out of this thing. This just hasn't been good enough. I need the chaos, and this is the thing. If we're ever going – the problem with reform is it doesn't come if things get a little bit fixed, right? So anytime somebody says – like we see this all the time in the NFL. You win a few games at the end of the year, and everybody stays. They're like, oh, no, we fixed it at the end of the year, right? Anytime you're in a situation where, like, you're in a ton of debt and suddenly you luckily fix yourself. You're like, you don't change your spending habits. You're like, no, I'm just going to go buy a scratch-off. The ACC getting into the college football playoff prevents the one thing we need, which is enough chaos for the Band-Aid to be ripped off. If the ACC champion out of this game is Duke, and then we end up with multiple bid thieves across the board, and I want a world where BYU wins the Big 12 championship and ACC champion is Duke, and we're still looking at James Madison trying to get into this thing, and whoever, group of five, get UNLV in, put all of these bad teams in that don't belong in the playoffs. I want it all to happen this year. I want the playoffs to get wrecked this year, because if the playoffs get wrecked this year, then the college football powers and people have no choice but to sit down and say, you know what? 12 best should probably just mean 12 best. We're just going to decide on 12 best, because this whole we got to make sure that everybody's at the table means that we're going to get this year in and year out. And what I don't want is to be dancing with destiny every single year on it when we could just eliminate the whole problem. So I need the ACC out of this thing. ACC, what do you think?
Oh, and that picture of Jimmy P., commissioner of the ACC, Jim Phillips, he looks so sad. If Virginia wins, they'll be in the playoff. They're the number 18 team in the country. They'll be in. The committee has told all of us they don't value the ACC, but it'll be enough for Virginia to get in. If Duke wins, though, I think there's a very, very, very high possibility the ACC is out of this entirely. And I think that is such a bad look for the ACC. Like, there hasn't been very much good PR for the ACC recently, whether it's teams wanting to, be out of the grant of rights agreement, whether, it's coaches and how they've kind of taken a fall from grace. I'm looking at you, Bill Belichick. I'm looking at you, Dabo Swinney. I'm looking at you, Mike Norvell. So this would just be the cherry on top of a whole lot of just bad stuff in a conference that's a Power 4 conference, in a conference that holds itself to very high regard. This is an uncomfortable position for Jim Phillips to be in. Jimmy P.
Yeah, the beautiful thing is that we've just sold you a bunch of papers because we've given you all the spice. All right, coming up, we got to figure out what is going on with one of the biggest stars in the NBA. Giannis is injured. He's going to miss 2 to 4 weeks. So what happens next? We'll answer that. Giannis Antetokounmpo and his agent have started conversations with the Bucks about the two-time NBA MVP's future and discussing whether his best fit is staying or elsewhere. We remember that report from Shams because it came right before Giannis then stepped on the court and unfortunately injured himself. He's now expected to miss 2 to 4 weeks with what they're calling a right calf strain. So, Caroline, now you've got all the discussions about what's going to happen, where it can go. Now, all of a sudden, we got to figure out when he can be healthy. What happens next in your mind?
I think it's time to move on. I don't know what's going to happen next, but this is what I would do and what I would think would be the best path forward for both sides. To move on, to trade Giannis and get an absolute haul in return. That's what Giannis wants. Giannis wants out. I know that Doc Rivers came out and said he didn't request a trade. Well, just because Giannis didn't formally request a trade doesn't mean that Giannis wants to stay in Milwaukee. Giannis wants to win. That is all he has ever wanted. That's what he's been outspoken about. The Bucks aren't winning. The Bucks aren't going to win. They do not have a team constructed to go on a run in the postseason. They've been bounced from the first round of the playoffs in the last 3 years. Like, we're looking at one of the best players in the world, and his prime is being wasted on a team that doesn't have a legitimate shot to win another championship. So, for Giannis, that's what makes sense moving forward. For the Bucks, I just feel like they are so handcuffed. They're so handcuffed with how much money they have tied up and asking Damian Lillard to just go away. They have so much money tied up into this roster. They don't have any tangible trade assets. There's nothing for the Bucks to do here. They're just between a rock and a hard place. So Giannis wants to win. You don't have a roster to win. You have nothing to build this roster up to be a contending roster. The only thing that you can really do is just move on from Giannis.
That's the hard part, is that I feel like you're right. The Bucks are stuck right now. That's probably pretty fair, right?
The Milwaukee Ducks.
You know, I love that. I've been squarely on record that it's exhausting, right? How often we're trying to put him somewhere else. The problem is they're not going to get anything tangible in return that helps them right now. So they're going to have to be willing as an organization to start a very invisible rebuild, much like Oklahoma City did when they started losing their stars after their finals appearance, and they had to decide, hey, we're willing to be irrelevant for a few years to try and build back towards relevance. That's the decision Milwaukee's going to have to make, and that's really tough to do in this moment. When you've got one of the biggest stars in the sport and somebody that just makes you, whether the Bucks ever win or not, the Bucks are part of the consciousness of the NBA because they have Giannis. So the ownership group is going to have to decide they're willing to just be forgotten about, where it's like, oh yeah, the Bucks, right? And they're going to have to be willing to do that in order to give Giannis what he needs, and maybe in order to give them the path to building the way they need. Because I'm simply like, they've tried everything they know how to do. They just haven't done it well. They haven't done it right, and they haven't gotten it right. So if you're Giannis, it's got to be exhausting. The hard part about this entire conversation to me, though, Caroline, is that I think we couch so much of this conversation like it's failure. I just want to stress here, the Milwaukee Bucks have an NBA championship. Like, as improbable as that is, like, we talk so much about Giannis like he's Lamar or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow in the NFL. And it's like, well, you never capitalized on him. Look at that. He's hoisting a championship trophy. He's got the Larry O.B., right? Like, so to me, there is this moment of no matter what the Bucks do moving forward, I refuse to look at the chapter with Giannis up to this point as anything other than a success, because they got a chip. And like, it's wild to me in a sport that where Patrick Ewing never got one, where Charles Barkley didn't get one, that we minimized that the Bucks, Milwaukee, only got one with Giannis. I refuse to play that game. So I want to give Milwaukee credit for what they've accomplished. I just don't know how to keep them in that conversation to try and accomplish more.
I think we as a sports society have become overly gluttonous with championships. We've been spoiled by the dynasties of Tom Brady, the dynasties of the Warriors, the LeBron and how many championships he's won in 3 different stops. We've become gluttonous with the dynasties of Patrick Mahomes. We're doing it right now with Oklahoma City. We're saying, oh yeah, that's cute and all that you won one, but like, you need to win one this year too, and win one the next year, and become validated in your success by being a dynasty. It's almost like winning a championship isn't enough anymore if you're not a dynasty. And I don't think that's necessarily fair. I do think, though, that certain sense of disappointment comes from the amount of respect that we all as a basketball society have for Giannis Antetokounmpo. The fact that I think today, if he decided to retire today, he will go down in history as what, a top 25 player in the history of the NBA, a top 30 player in the history of the NBA. Like, I'm willing to have that conversation. That's the kind of talent that Giannis Antetokounmpo is. So I hear you, but I also, and I don't disagree with you. But also, that's just kind of what we came to expect from Giannis because that's how good Giannis is. But let's say if the Bucks trade Giannis tomorrow, I don't think there's going to be any sort of bad blood that Bucks fans have for Giannis. Frankly, Giannis has been far more patient with the Bucks than any other superstar in the league is with an quote-unquote underperforming organization. I point to this as being more of a shortcoming for the Milwaukee Bucks, knowing that they had a championship. But since winning that championship, it's been misstep after misstep after misstep that the Bucks became so obsessed with keeping Giannis happy that they've gotten themselves in this situation. Like, I think that moving on from Dame with the Achilles injury and, tying up all that money into having Dame go away and bringing in Miles Turner, that was the best that the Bucks could do. But it wasn't good enough. And look, I can applaud an organization for doing the best that they can do to try and keep their superstar happy and to try and keep this window alive. But the reason why that was the best that they could do is because they got themselves in this situation. So I don't view this as a major shortcoming or a failure by either Giannis or the Bucks. It's just, look, you made a lot of bad decisions from the championship until now to keep that championship window open. Then at this point, the window just has to close.
Well, and that speaks to just how difficult it is to correct mistakes in the NBA. Like, once you get dug in on the wrong contracts with the wrong players because of how difficult trading is and because of equal contract value across the board, you make a mistake, and each time, to your point, like acquiring Miles Turner may have been the best thing they could do in the situation they were in. Every time they've done the best thing they could do in a situation they're in, the Bucks, it feels like they've compounded the entire issue. And maybe that's why it is time to rip off the Band-Aid. But at the same time, I don't know, like, let me be Debbie Downer for a minute. Like, if we're being honest, that's not going to make the Bucks better anytime soon. So certainly if I'm Milwaukee, I'm not motivated to do it other than I just want to try and maximize the value I can get for Giannis. But then the flip side of it is I don't know who viably right now can pick up Giannis that suddenly is going to go on this run that will make that team a championship team this year. I don't think that there's a team out there that acquires Giannis and he's suddenly winning a ring. So you'd be acquiring Giannis to try and build the pieces around over the next year or two, while we're also sitting here looking at what I think is a modern dynasty in the making for Oklahoma City, and a Denver team that's really good, and a Lakers team that looks like they're going to be competitive through the course of this. Like, yeah, you can get them back to the NBA Finals if you deal them somewhere in the East, but I don't know that, what we want is Milwaukee and the Bucks to win a chip. That's not going to happen. And so now what we want is Giannis to win a chip and Milwaukee to rebuild. And I don't think that's particularly easy. And that's why you just end up with this moment where you've got Giannis and the Bucks, to me, just sort of stuck staying together because there isn't really a better solution that works for anybody right now. There might be in the offseason, but today, right now, I think it's really difficult. Even though the timing of his injury will put him right up on that December 15th trade area, I know there's going to be a lot of speculation. I think it's going to take such a haul. And also, by the way, if they get a haul, are they just doing what they've been doing? Are they just putting mistakes on mistakes? I don't know.
And it has to make sense for the Bucks. Like, it's not like the Bucks are going to approach this and say, oh, we just want what's best for Giannis. We just want him to win a championship. No, this is not Bucks.gov. This is a for-profit business. This is a for-profit team that wants to win championships. So the trade compensation has to make sense. Like, we know that Giannis wants to be a Knick. Great. What can the Knicks offer the Bucks to not just be, improved this year, but to become a championship contending team within the near future? I don't know if the Knicks really have anything. So, Giannis can say all day long that he wants to be in New York, but what makes sense for the Bucks and what makes sense let's just say what makes sense for the Bucks. What team out there can offer you draft picks or young players that you can prove and show a tangible path over the next 3 to 5 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be? I don't think they can really afford and sign up for being terrible for the next 10 years. But, what's the path? What's the plan? You don't trade a superstar and the face of a franchise and really the heart and soul of a city like Giannis is from Milwaukee if you can't sell a plan moving forward. So not only does this make sense for Giannis, but it has to make sense for the Bucks as well.
Yeah, and draft picks will have to be part of it, as noted here, and everyone should know the Bucks have zero control over their own first-round draft picks until 2031 because of the Drew Holiday and Damian Lillard trades. So they don't have control of their own first-round picks until 2031. There is no easy solution that keeps the Bucks at the level that they want to be. We'll keep breaking it down, keep you updated on any Bucks trade action that we get. But in the meantime, Ben Fawkes is going to join us next. It's time to break down some of the betting angles you need to know for the weekend in the NFL and college football. Notable Super Bowl bet placed at BetMGM, 50,000 schmackaroos on the Chicago Bears to win the Super Bowl at 66-1 odds. Bet would win $3.3 million. The Bears currently 30-1. It's the largest reported Super Bowl wager, sports bowl, by liability at legal U.S. sportsbooks. Ben Fawkes with that little nugget for us. Ben joins us right now. Apparently, sports bowl. That's a new thing. It's a Super Bowl, but it's all about every sport. We appreciate the time, Ben. Thanks for hanging out with us. Chicago gets a big win over the Eagles. They can take a big lead at this point. Is now the last chance to get in on the Bears with the futures, or is there reason to still hold off?
Yeah, I think you'll still have some time. And just a little more on that bet as well. That was placed right after the game. So that was actually a better. Saw the Bears. They won the game. They ended up getting that bet in. And then obviously BetMGM changed the odds. The Bears now down to about 30-1 to win the Super Bowl after that. The Bears have a tough schedule. So this was kind of the first, prove it game that they've had in a while. And they passed it with flying colors, right? They looked great. They just ran against an Eagles team. I think the big question, the Bears playing the Packers, 6.5-point favorites for Green Bay, still not getting that respect necessarily from odds makers from kind of what we've seen. They've surpassed the expectations for odds makers preseason, right? Their win total was 8.5. We see up there on the screen one bettor, actually another Illinois bettor at Bet Rivers had a $300,000 wager preseason on their over. So that cash. So some big bets on the Bears. They've kind of surpassed the preseason expectations, and now it's a different, hey, is this a Super Bowl contender? And right now, odds makers aren't sold yet. I asked 4 different odds makers, basically, where would you power rate the Bears? And they were anywhere from kind of 11th to 17th. And obviously, for the NFC number 1 seed right now this week, that's a little low kind of for what you would imagine. But they just aren't necessarily sold, I think, on the Caleb Williams aspect of the team. and they've been winning for the most part with defense, with that offensive line, and with a lot of turnovers. So not necessarily sold. I think there'll be time to get in on the Bears if you really believe in them in the futures market.
Not everybody sold after that Eagles win, but if the Bears take down the Packers, that's when I think they'll really get some people's attention in a really juicy divisional game. But we've got another great divisional game coming up this weekend as well. The Colts at the Jags. The Colts just narrow favorites on the road. And this one is for, I'm not going to say all the marbles in the AFC South, but that it's a big one in the AFC South. How do you think the loser of this game, how do you think their odds will be affected in the division and making the postseason?
Yeah, all of a sudden the Colts are in trouble, right? They're looking like this team. We're saying, hey, can they win the Super Bowl? They make the trade for Sauce Gardner. He's obviously now injured as well. And I think somewhat surprisingly, like right now, the Jaguars are minus 450 to make the playoffs, and the Colts are minus 275. So the Jaguars have obviously the potential here to win the division and not easily, but can still make the playoffs. They have a much easier remaining schedule as well. The Colts have the toughest remaining schedule in the NFL among every single team. The Jaguars are 16th. Part of that reason is because they play the Titans the last week of the season, and the Colts are at the Texans. So two very, very opposite matchups there. These teams will play again in week 17, so this is kind of one of those two matchups. But for the Colts, they're a 1.5 point favorite in this game at Jacksonville. It's a place they've traditionally struggled, and they just are kind of going the wrong way, right? They've lost a couple games against good teams. Certainly that Kansas City game, one you thought they could win. And ultimately, I think I don't think it's underreported, but just Daniel Jones playing on a fractured fibula, generally not good for your quarterback. And I think what we saw in that game as well, now that we've seen one game kind of that injury report and seeing what it looks like on the field, he only threw one pass basically outside the pocket. And so when you eliminate Daniel Jones and kind of that RPO threat, and we saw some success previous seasons, right, with even Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, when you have that running quarterback and that option, all of a sudden now, if you have Daniel Jones as a less mobile pocket passer, that's not really what you want. The Jaguars, on the other hand, they're just a team that kind of continues to win odd games, I guess is the easiest way to say it. They kind of skate by the Cardinals in overtime, the game they tried to give away. They beat the Raiders in overtime. They gave up a touchdown, but stopped the 2-point conversion. So they're winning games. I don't think it's necessarily as impressive. The advanced metrics aren't as high on the Jaguars, but at the same time, they have 8 wins. And certainly in this game, it really is kind of a toss-up as do you want the quote-unquote hot team kind of trending in the right direction, or do you want the Colts who have been going in the wrong direction? A huge game for both teams. And one, we'll see if kind of the Colts can right that ship. Daniel Jones can get that passing attack going as well. The Colts also really missing DeForest Buckner, who still has at least another game he's out on defense. So really important game in the AFC South and the AFC playoff picture. One, a lot of teams, including the Kansas City Chiefs, will be watching.
Speaking of the Chiefs, Texans at Chiefs this weekend, how will that game impact both teams' playoff chances?
Yeah, this is kind of the, last shot, I think, for the Chiefs, right, at 6-6. And these two teams are kind of like the teams we just mentioned, the Colts and the Jaguars, except without the margin for error, right? The Texans 7-5, the Chiefs now 6-6. Chiefs a 3.5 point favorite in this game, but they don't have, as we're showing there, necessarily the easiest schedule, playing the Chargers again, the Broncos. 2 games you'd think they'd win against the Titans and the Raiders, but they're going to be in that position where they're going to need to win just about every game. And then they also have the issue for the Chiefs with those tiebreakers, right? Those games early in the season always come back to bite you. It hasn't necessarily happened with the Chiefs because they've had the margin for error in previous seasons. But this year, obviously, they lost to the Bills and they lost to the Jaguars. And week 1, they lost to the Chargers. So those are 3 teams that look like they might, even if they don't win the division, are in good shape for a wild card. Now the Chiefs have to have a better record than those teams, depending on how that Chargers game goes as well. So this is a huge game. This is the first week as well in the season. The Chiefs are actually favored to miss the postseason. They were a minus 450 favorite, the 4th best odds of any team before the season to make the playoffs. Obviously, if you said, hey, the Chiefs are going to miss the playoffs, one, you could make a lot of money, but two, I think you'd get some looks, certainly, because it just wasn't something we'd seen. And ultimately, Patrick Mahomes has at least made the AFC Championship game in every one of his seasons as a starter. So I think we're conditioned until that doesn't happen to assume that it does happen. But right now, the Chiefs, when they're down, I like to say previous years, right, when they're down, betting on the Chiefs money line was kind of an auto bet, right? They're down 3 or 4, the final minute, 2 minutes, Patrick Mahomes is going to come back. They're going to make it happen. All of a sudden, when they have a lead, it doesn't seem insurmountable. And when they're down, it just doesn't seem like they're going to come back. So there's a little of those metrics that haven't been as good. And then I think the eye test as well. They just haven't seemed like the same team this season. And that's reflected in their record so far.
Yeah, it is just crazy to think about a world where Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are not in the postseason. And it'll be fascinating to see when the public and when the sports books start to lose that faith in Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs if they do fall to the Texans this weekend. But let's transition into college. Let's look at the Heisman race. We'll see Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sayin go head-to-head in the Big Ten Championship this weekend. We also see Diego Pavia with great odds out of Vanderbilt, Jeremiah Love and Jeremiah Smith, both kind of long shots to find themselves in New York City. But do you think, how big of an impact do you think that the Big Ten Championship could have on both Sayin and Mendoza's odds?
Yeah, first of all, just an awesome game, right? This is exactly what you want in a Big Ten Championship game. Number one, number two Heisman favorites. And this, I don't think it's going on a limb to say this is going to determine it. I'm a little surprised that Diego Pavia's odds are that close. Obviously, he does have the stats. They have a great narrative. It's looking like a long shot. Potentially, they would get into the college football playoff. But his biggest thing is that they don't play. And so having, I think, that matchup with Julian Sayin and Mendoza, and also in Indianapolis, right? And so indoors, you don't have necessarily the elements. They certainly have the chance to put up numbers. And it is a little bit of that numbers versus narrative, right? Julian Sayin, big recruit, coming into Ohio State. You obviously have Jeremiah Smith, you have Carnell Tate, you have a great defense. You're kind of driving the bus a little bit, what the Vikings fans hope J.J. McCarthy would be this season. You have the keys to the Porsche, don't mess it up. He's been even better than that, certainly. A lot of great advanced metrics. He's played very well. And Mendoza also has played really well. The big difference between the stats, I'd say, is Mendoza has about 600 yards rushing, I think 5 or 6 touchdowns. And Sayin has, 27 yards, I think, on 31 carries. So not the rushing threat. I think this ultimately plays a little bit into who you think is just the better prospect, as well as who is the better team. Sayin has the better team. If they win and it's a close game, does that give enough for Mendoza to still get the Heisman? I think he deserves it a little more, right, based off of also that narrative. An Indiana quarterback potentially winning the Heisman. But I think if Ohio State rolls here, there's a good chance that you get it for Sayin. And just since you have to also factor these in now, in the prediction market space, Julian Sayin is a slight favorite over Mendoza as well. So just another data point to use when we're kind of looking at this overall.
So, Ben, if both guys have a stinky game, do you think, given how close the odds are, that Vegas is telling you they believe that Diego Pavia can still win?
That would be my take from the odds. I just have a hard time seeing, right, in the same way that the public, and this is obviously voted upon, right, that voters are going to say, well, these, let's just say it's 13-10 and one team wins and both guys throw 2 interceptions. Pavia's been amazing. Mendoza still has that moment, right, against Penn State and that drive and that kind of Heisman moment. And by the same token, you still have Julian Sayin going out and playing really well against Michigan, a team they lost to 4 straight years. So they both kind of already have their Heisman moment in a sense. I would think this is what, again, for other discussions, right, championship games should be additive in the same way for some of these teams like Alabama. They shouldn't be penalized if they lose. I think in the Heisman, it should still be kind of that way where, again, unless someone is just awful, it should kind of be something that boosts one of the two as opposed to both of them fall behind Pavia. I'd have a hard time seeing that. But look, crazier things have certainly happened.
Yeah, and the now the new rule that Heisman voters can't vote until after conference championship games definitely doesn't do Jeremiah Love this year or any Notre Dame player in the future any sort of favors in a Heisman Trophy race. But while we're on the topic of college football, Ben, we've seen Lane Kiffin go to LSU and a whole lot of drama that has ensued after that. What have the sports books and the publics, how have their impressions of Ole Miss making a run in the college football playoff changed?
Yeah, this is a pretty unique situation, right? And so I think, in a way, sports books, to a certain extent, the whole COVID era was a little bit of a stress test in terms of what could happen and players being injured and coaches being sick and not available. This is still a new kind of thing because this is a team that obviously was looking like they are probably going to be in the college football playoff by the rankings, but the head coach is gone. We've seen this from the players' extent, right, with Jordan Travis and Florida State, and that's obviously the quarterback, much more important than the head coach. But they're there because of Lane Kiffin, his offensive scheme as well. He was the one who recruited Trinidad Chambliss, and that's why he's part of the reason it's been so successful. So a couple odds makers said it was at least kind of a 2.5 point drop in the power ratings for Ohio State. Some of that also dependent on, are all the players going to stay and play the games? How many other coaches do we know that are leaving as well? And then just kind of an unknown, a guessing game of what is kind of the morale of this team. I wrote an article earlier this week, kind of before we'd heard that audio. It does seem like the players rallied around the new head coach more than potentially you would have thought based off of kind of the external noise of Lane Kiffin in that situation. But ultimately, until they take the field against their opponent, it's a little tough to know kind of what that looks like in terms of the offensive scheme and the players in general. So a definite downgrade for Ole Miss. It's just a question of kind of how much. And then we'll just see as that game goes along, kind of, do they look great? And maybe we overestimated it, or wow, Lane Kiffin and that offense, that was really a big, big loss. And they just had no chance or had less of a chance in the first round.
Follow him on social media at BFawkes22. Read him, yahoosports.com/betting. Ben, appreciate you, my friend. Enjoy a wild weekend. We appreciate all your insight.
It's going to be a good one.
Thanks,
All
Ben.
right, from Ben Fawkes picks, we'll get to our picks next. Pick 6 coming. Don't want to miss it. Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. It's Friday, and that means it is time to get our picks up. You know what we do. Pick 6. We give you 6 games, a mix of college and NFL games. You go out there, Whew. Oh, I've taken what now? A 2-game lead? Oh, feeling good about this one.
Yeah,
We agreed on a lot of
yeah.
games. I know. Well, it's early. That you never talk. It's actually not that early. It's getting kind of late in the season. So,
Yeah,
I'm
about to
just
say,
gonna start
it's
talking
not
that talks.
early. It's December.
No, that's fair. And that's fair. I'm in second place in the Fantasy Football Live Pick'em contest there too on FFL on Sundays, which everybody should watch at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. And there we
Rub
go.
it
Yeah, I'm just
in.
saying. And then Texas Tech, BYU. We
Who's in
agree.
first?
Texas Tech is. Well, that doesn't really matter. Does it? Justin Boone's in
Okay,
first, but importantly,
Of
Harmon
course.
is in last place, and I remind him of that every single day on
As you
text,
should.
which he really appreciates. So we both think Texas Tech wins. Does that keep BYU out of the playoff?
It does. Yeah, and I hate that for BYU because I do think we need to talk a little bit more about the strength of BYU's resume. They have the 6th ranked strength of record. They have the 35th ranked strength of schedule. That's better than Ole Miss. And none of us have questioned Ole Miss's validity in the college football playoff, even though they don't even have their head coach. So I do think that does leave BYU out of the playoff because the College Football Playoff Committee has shown us that they don't value BYU. I hate that, though. I think just the metrics alone should put BYU a little bit firmly more in the conversation.
Yeah, I agree, and it's unfortunate. It's just the way this bracket has worked out. We've both taken Georgia over Alabama. Not a big surprise there. Although you think it's going to be a close game, and I'm on record saying I need it to be a slaughter, like just an absolute bludgeoning, the biggest blowout in SEC championship game in history. I'm not mad at any of those things. That would make for a really electric Sunday for the selection committee. Ohio State, Indiana, toughest game of all of these that we picked. I don't know, Caroline. Like, I will be the first to admit that I feel like if I were watching these teams with no jerseys on, Indiana, it's a coin flip for me. But then they have jerseys on, and I trust Ohio State in the big game. They've been here before. We've seen it over and over again. I think I trust Ohio State, but this one was really tough for me.
This one is much tougher than maybe like projecting Indiana last year. Indiana last year was a cool and cute story, but we knew once Indiana ran into a legitimate contender, they would get slaughtered. And they did. This is a different Indiana team. This is far and beyond the toughest test that Ohio State's defense has seen all season long. Overall, though, I still just think Ohio State's defense is that good, even against Fernando Mendoza and Elijah Surratt and this entire Indiana pass attack. And I also just trust Julian Sagan. I don't want there to be a narrative out there, though, that this means more to Indiana. Ohio State hasn't won a Big Ten championship game since 2020. This group, this core, has never won a conference championship game. I know Indiana hasn't ever been on this stage either, but let's not act that it's going to mean so much more to Indiana than it does to Ohio State. This is a big one for both of these teams.
Totally. It's the best game of the weekend, I think. NFL or college. I'll go that far. Colts, Jags, we disagree. I'm pot committed on the Colts. They got to turn it around at some point. Don't feel great about Daniel Jones' leg right now. But I also don't feel great about consistency from the Jags. So this feels like which version of each of our manic teams in this situation are going to show up.
Yeah, consistently inconsistent, I think, is the tale of the tape for so many teams in the NFL this year. The Lions, the Bills, the Jags totally fit that bill. Ultimately come down, no pun intended, this came down to me home field advantage, came down to Daniel Jones hasn't looked like Daniel Jones recently with that hairline fracture in his leg, and Jonathan Taylor hasn't really been running the rock at the same clip that he was maybe earlier in the season. So close game, weird game, funky game, because that's just the kind of games that the Jags play. But that's also the kind of games that the Jags win. Weird, funky games.
What about Bears-Packers? We disagree on this one. I feel like the Bears are hearing the noise. All I've heard all week is how bad Caleb Williams has actually been, and like all of the advanced metrics, completion percentage downfield, and everybody's just trashing Caleb all week. I just feel like that's fuel to the fire for a Bears team that's been really lucky this year. But why not be lucky against a Packers team that's also inconsistent to me? So I'm taking a stab in the dark here. I'm going with the Bears. I'm going with the instant gratification of this one. What do you think?
I think they're still riding the high of beating the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. This is a young team, and I know that's a week ago now. By the time they play on Sunday, it'll be over a week ago. But when you're a young team and you're new on the stage, that sometimes you have some coming back down to earth that comes your way. I think that comes their way this weekend. I think that makes this division so much more interesting. And look, the Packers at home, I'll take them at Lambeau all day long, except when it's against the Carolina Panthers.
And home matters here. Texans at Chiefs. I don't trust the Texans offense. This game is at Arrowhead, and the Chiefs they're dead if they lose this game. The season is over if they lose this game. So I'm taking Kansas City out of desperation. That's my mindset on it anyway.
We've been flirting with pronouncing the Chiefs dead for so long. I will hold us to that on Monday morning, Jason Fitz. If the Kansas City Chiefs lose at home to the Houston Texans, we can officially pronounce the Chiefs dead. We have to hold ourselves to that because we keep wanting to, but not doing it because it's Mahomes and the Chiefs. No, they lose this game, they are dead. I don't think the Chiefs are going out that easily. I don't think that the Chiefs are going to be statistically eliminated from the playoffs in early December. And it's also at home at Arrowhead. The Chiefs play their best football at home. But look, I love that Texans defense. I really do. It's going to make life tough for Patrick Mahomes.
There is no doubt. And this is not about a disrespect for the Texans. It's just about Arrowhead for me. If this game were in Houston, I think I would go the other way.
It's so much about Arrowhead.
Usually, this is where we end the show. But no, everybody is in on the social media phenomenon of Spotify Wrapped. So we thought we'd have a little bit of fun. Caroline, are you ready to show the world your Sportify Wrapped, the topics that consumed you in 2025?
Yeah, perhaps even better than Spotify Wrapped. This was my Sportify Wrapped. The top 5 things that have just consumed my sports fandom. And at number 5, we bring it in with the one, the only. We know her, we love her, the Jordan Hudson of it all. And it started with the social media post and Halloween in 2024. And it was totally cemented at the NFL Awards. Remember, she was wearing some of Bill Belichick's Super Bowl rings. She was wearing the fat ring that he got her, and then it's just snowballed into all of the North Carolina of it all. The CBS Sunday News interview, it was all the FOIAs, it was suing Pablo Torre, it was everything she posted on social media, it was calling herself the CEO of Belichick Productions. Jordan Hudson has single-handedly turned Bill Belichick from a guy who hates distractions to a guy who is a distraction. So Jordan Hudson at 5, but at number 4, my girl, A'ja Wilson, and the dynastic run that continues for the Las Vegas Aces. She's league MVP. She was finals MVP. She is the best player in the world. I have fallen in love, even more in love. And I didn't even think that was possible with A'ja Wilson in this run that she went on. So she's at 4, but at 3, I got to bring it to the home team. Lane Kiffin. The Lane Kiffin saga.
Only 3?
Posting, because it just gets better. Posting, self-help book pictures on social media, going on Pat McAfee, eventually leaving for LSU in the playoff run for Ole Miss. It just never seems to be simple or easy with Lane Kiffin. So he comes in at 3, but trust me, it just gets better. I hear you saying it's only at 3. That's because our mascot, our show mascot, has to trump Lane Kiffin. The big dumper, Cal Raleigh, comes in at number 2. He was my favorite story in baseball, hands down, is my favorite story in baseball over the last several years. I feel like all of America just fell in love with the big dumper this year. The ride he went on, the records he broke, he should have been AL MVP, and I will stand on that forever and ever and always. I think that we all just kind of, a little piece of our, I'll stand by Big Dumper, but he's not my number 1 story. Because I think my favorite story of the year, my number 1 spot, drumroll please, Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones and the off-season saga. Micah and Jerry and Micah laying on the trainer's table in the preseason games. They're very public feuds. Jerry Jones, Jerry Jonesing. Now Micah Parsons looking like in full Micah Parsons form with the Green Bay Packers. And now the Cowboys are probably going to miss the playoffs. So Micah and Jerry is just good television. What do you think? What do you make of it?
Your list is absolutely flawless. You've missed nothing. I would have done a list, but my list was only sad boy pop of how Pete Carroll and the Raiders have ruined my life yet again. Every single fall. I got one song. I just listened to it. Everybody Hurts is the only song that I get to listen to all year. This is great. You've got dynamic from great pop culture stories to great stories in sports to your team to the dumper and then to the Cowboys. It's a little bit of everything for everybody. Come back Monday for even more. We'll be back here right here at 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching Yahoo Sports Daily.